Hey everybody, it's Jay with 10 Minutes of Hope. And it is time for our weekly devotion. Okay, so today we're going to be doing our devotion on the Beatitudes. Okay, so if you don't know what that is a section. It's a very small section, 7 verses, 8 verses, from the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, a lot of Jesus' teachings, or excuse me, a lot of the four Gospels are about miracles. They're broken into parables where Jesus teaches through a story, right? The Sermon on the Mount found in Matthew, chapters 5, 6, and 7, is really the biggest section of the Gospels that's directly attuned to Jesus teaching in one time. All right. Now, some scholars argue on did Jesus really teach all of this at one time, or did Matthew just put all of this teaching together? It's really irrelevant for the purpose of today's lesson. I'm not ceding one way or the other. Honestly, I don't know. But I do know that this is stuff Jesus taught on. Okay, so we're not going to be covering the whole Sermon on the Mount. If you've never read it, or if you've never paid it much attention, I encourage you to go back and to do this. Okay, there's some really, really good stuff here. A lot of Jesus' teaching throughout the sermon is not done in parables, which is very rare for Jesus to sit down with a crowd of people that weren't his disciples and to teach not using parables. Okay, so verse 1, chapter 5, Matthew. Now when he saw the crowds, he went up to the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them, saying. All right, that was verse 2. So, verse 3. Let's start breaking these down. Okay, verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so what are we talking about? What does Jesus mean when he says poor in spirit? Okay, so I've struggled with this concept myself. What exactly does that mean? And you got to think that a lot of times when Jesus talked about poor, talked about rich, he really wasn't talking about money most of the time. Okay, so poor in spirit, what does that mean? Okay, the cliff notes, the footnotes in my Bible break this down really, really well. Okay, so it describes poor in spirit as being not arrogant and not self-reliant. Not arrogant or self-reliant. Okay? So, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Poor in spirit, not arrogant or self-reliant. You have to understand that the kingdom of heaven is not about you. Okay? The kingdom of heaven is not about me. Okay? It's not our kingdom. So it makes perfect sense where people that are not arrogant or self-reliant would make it to the kingdom of heaven. Because if we realize that, if we learn to recognize God's work in our lives, right, and realize that God did this, God gave us this opportunity, God gave us the talent and abilities to make this opportunity happen, right? and then not self-reliant. So when we have trouble actually going before God, okay? Verse 4, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Alright, so does that mean that God only blesses you when you're sad and depressed? Or when bad things happen to you? No, that is not what that means. Okay? To mourn, what this is referring to is to recognize and feel sorrow for your imperfections. So when you make mistakes, when you sin, right? You feel heartbroken. Okay, you truly feel sad, because this is how you come to repentance, right? If you don't feel bad for what you did, you're not gonna change. It's the same thing I tell my kids all the time. Sorry doesn't do anything for me, right? You want to apologize to me? You want me to know you feel sorry? Change the way you act, okay? Number 5, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Okay, so what is the meek? Okay, so meek is humble and submissive to God. It doesn't mean that if you work out and are strong, you can't make it to heaven. Okay, that it doesn't mean physically meek. All right, Jesus in his teaching is always talking about the heart. Always, always, always. Right? It's always about the heart. So, meek, humble, and submissive to God. Okay? You have to make yourself that way. Right? Like with this ministry. Right? This is not me. Right? This is God's direction for me to do. Okay? God tells me what I'm going to teach on, and I teach. Right? That's me being submissive. Okay? The humble part is that any success that comes from this, I recognize as God's work. Okay? And that's just like that with every part of your life. Yeah, you do cool things, right? I've done cool things, right? But I was only able to do that with the help of God. Okay? And then when God tells me to do something, I've got to be submissive. I got to be obedient, so God will continue to bless my life. Okay? Number 6, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So that really shouldn't be complicated, okay? It's people that have a desire to want to be good people. People that have a desire to want to be good Christians, right? A small characteristic of this, right, is people who want to read the Bible. Okay, if you don't read the Bible, if you don't ever touch the Bible, right, which is our guidebook for living, which tells us how to be righteous, right, then do you have that hunger and thirst? I'm going to argue no, okay? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled, okay? If you seek God, God is going to meet you halfway, right? If you earnestly, honestly seek God, He's going to meet you, okay? But you got to take action, okay? If I'm hungry, but I'm not hungry to get off my butt and walk into the kitchen and make me something to eat, I'm not very hungry, okay? Food ain't going to come to me, okay? I got to get up and do the work. All right, beloved? You got to get up and do the work. And if you're having a hard time, if you're struggling with this, like I have in the past, I've struggled with wanting to take the time to read the Bible, okay? Maybe I'm busy. Maybe I've just got a lot of stuff going on in my head, right? My crazy's acting up or whatever. I've had to pray, God, give me hunger for your word. Give me the hunger for you, right? That's a real thing. A lot of people deal with that. Okay, that's an earnest, honest prayer. And it's okay, beloved. It's okay. We are not perfect people. We're not good people naturally. Okay? This takes work. And God is going to help us. But you got to go to Him. Right? Number 7. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. Alright, that's another thing that shouldn't be complicated. Why is mercy important? Why should you be merciful? Why should you care? Okay? In my notes, I've got mercy. Someone who's merciful has sympathy and compassion for others. Okay? That's all others. Right? That's not just people who have mercy on you. There's a story in the Bible that even talks about it. How hard is it to love somebody who loves you? There's no great reward in that. Or lending money to a rich man. There's no actual effort there because they're going to repay you. Feeding someone who has money, they will feed you. Okay? But if you give to somebody who can't give back, that's where the real love, the real mercy comes in. And forgiveness, beloved, is part of mercy. Forgiveness, right? God's form of forgiveness is grace, forgiving us when we don't deserve it, just because He loves us. Now, the next time you have a hard time with your brother, your neighbor, the person at work that irritates you, work on this mercy and grace, all right? Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. All right. Verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So I have struggled with this one too. Really, what's pure of heart? I know that ain't me. Okay. So again, in my footnotes, this is how it describes pure of heart. Somebody who has been freed from sin. Right? The temptation of sin in their life. Right? And specifically it goes into talking about people that have lived this life and lived this journey long enough to where the temptations of the world around them no longer bother them. And that's a crazy concept to me. But we've all have met people like that, right? We've met, I've got a pastor that tells me, he's like, I'm no way a perfect person, but I don't really sin anymore. But he spent the last 70 years living for God diligently, working on this. And he's just come to the point to where it never, ever enters his mind. The temptation never bothers him. It's not there anymore. Okay? So that's how this describes pure of heart. So that's something we've got to strive for. Right? And pray for. Alright, so number 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. This is another thing I struggle with. Right? On a personal level. I was a soldier. I was in the army. Right? Making peace is not my strong suit. Right? So, but again, this is pretty self-explanatory. And it's not just people that are peace. It's to the extent of they seek peace around them. They create peace around them. Some very basic characteristics are people that don't gossip. Because if you gossip, you're creating conflict and drama. That is not peace, beloved. Okay? You cannot create peace when you're bringing people against each other. Peace is the opposite. Okay? Lastly, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay? That right there is something we all seek. But can we face persecution for our faith? And we hear martyrs. We hear about martyrs all over the world. There are people in Afghanistan right now that are being hung in the streets for being a Christian. That's a true story, beloved. I've been to Afghanistan. I know what that culture is like. Okay? They're not all bad people, but I've met the Mujahideen. I've met the Taliban. Okay? I know it's true. Okay? It's true. Okay? People are being hung, shot, tortured for being Christians and refusing to denounce their faith. Okay? Now that's an insanely extreme example. It's true. It's a reality of the world. But that's not the only kind of persecution that exists. Kids in school get made fun of for being a Christian. Adults in colleges right now get made fun of for being a Christian, right? There's a church in California last month, I believe. California is really strict COVID mandates right now. They're not allowed to be inside of a church building. So the pastors decided to hold the church service out in the parking lot, making sure everyone was distanced, right? And fascists from Antifa went and pepper sprayed the congregation members for being Christians, for going to a service, right? Persecution for our faith is here in this country today, in your hometown, maybe in your own home. Can you face it? Can you deal with it? Can you handle being made fun of for believing in the creator of the universe? It's a very hard thing. Even that, something so simple, right? We may not get to a point in our lifetimes that in our country you are drug out in the streets and executed for your faith. But if you can't take a little criticism, how are you going to handle that? Okay? Now, I'm not being judgmental. Okay? I'm not sitting on some high horse and, looking down on you, beloved. This is a struggle that all Christians face. We're human beings. This is very difficult to deal with. Okay? A lot of Christians are afraid to talk about their own faith or acknowledge their faith because of this. Are you a Christian? Okay? Beloved, these are all things I want you to think about. Okay? I want you to be strong in your faith. I want you to grow in your walk with God. I want you to feel the joy and peace I have. Okay? I want you to make it to heaven. I want you to be able to see God one day. And I want, as always, your day to be full of hope. Beloved, I love you. If you need me, I'm here. If you want to talk more, I'm here. Alright? This is real stuff, though. If you haven't read the Sermon on the Mount, go back and read it. Okay, I'm gonna be. The Father has called me to expand my teaching and to work on my teaching. So He's called me to preach a series, which is something I said I would never do, on the book of Matthew. Okay, so I'm sure I will do a in-depth study on the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, beloved, maybe 2 or 3. All right, so hope to see you there. Bring a notebook. This should be good. Good stuff for all of us. All right, I love you guys. You have a good week.